Hey team, this video is to walk us through the process and basically my expectations for how we need to be using CINC. I know basically I've dripped ideas to you guys over time between the CINC cookbook emails and text messages and our twice a week morning phone calls. But nonetheless, I've been working on getting that all into one succinct process because I've seen over time each of us have been using CINC in slightly different ways, updating leads in slightly different ways. Which I'm glad everybody is now using CINC, but the unfortunate thing is that we're all using it a little bit differently. And so it does get to be a little bit confusing whenever we start trying to go in and make calls, and there's a bunch of information on a lead and we don't know what to do with it. So we're going to start here with the very top. There's a couple just high-level things we'll bring up before we dive into it. Is if a lead throws you a curveball, you, for whatever reason, don't know what to do about it. Maybe you're making calls and you see a lead that has information that confuses you. Or maybe you're going down making calls and then a lead throws you some curveballs. You're not really sure how you should update them now, or what bucket you should put them in, or what label you should apply to them. There is a Terry ? Label. So anytime you're messing with a lead and you don't know what to do about them, you have a question about them, add the Terry ? label. And then at some point in time later, let me know. Keep doing your work. Keep making your calls. Keep doing whatever it was you were doing. That way you don't have to think about, say, scribble their name down on a sheet of paper and then try to find it later to text me or call me or get in touch with me. Or when we do get in touch, you couldn't remember who the name was. So there's a Terry ? label. Once you've applied that, though, at some point later, do send me a text or an email or a phone call to let me know, hey, there's somebody I added the Terry ? to. We need to talk about them, and we'll get in touch. Next thing is when it comes to the phone call statuses, the phone number statuses of leads. There's the green check mark, there's the unsubscribe icon, and then of course there's the orange triangle invalid phone number icon. None of those are reasons for us to not be calling on a lead. Now, so with CINC, you cannot make a CINC phone call unless the lead has the green check mark. But you can still pick up your phone and use Google Voice. You can still just use your regular cell phone. Maybe you can't call them through CINC, but nonetheless, that is not a reason to not call somebody. Unless a client is on the phone with you and they tell you, do not contact me, do not call me, put me on your do not call list, we have a label for that now. And you'll see later in this process that if a lead says, do not contact me or do not call me, we're going to apply that do not call label, and we're going to put them in a bucket to get them out of your way. So from here on out, whenever a lead says, don't call me, we're going to get them out of your way. And so everybody that pops up in front of you, they're worth calling, either through CINC if they got a green check mark, or through Google Voice or your cell phone if they have anything other than the green check mark. But don't use those as excuses to not call on people. All right, go ahead and dive into the process here. So as I've said plenty of times, whenever we're working on prospecting, start with the P1, call everybody through there. Then we'll go down to P2, P3, P4. Everybody in P1 should be new leads following this process. Everybody under P2, 3, and 4 is going to be attempted contact, goes through this process. Now, sure, there's plenty of times you can say, if you're done making some calls for the day and you want to play around and search for other people in CINC, go ahead and do that. But again, what I'm saying that we all need to be doing, set aside a certain amount of time a day. If it's 15 minutes, fine. If it's 30 minutes, that's much better. If it's an hour, that's incredible, and you will be successful at this. But set aside a block of time every day that you're going to sit down and make as many calls as you can. It might be one call to an old lady that keeps you on the phone for the next hour. Hey, great. That's worth your time. Maybe you make 40 phone calls and none of them connect. But guess what? You just updated 40 leads for us as a whole for the team. That was helpful to us. But basically, let's set time aside every single day to make calls, because guess what? If you've got a deal in process and you got a paycheck coming in a couple weeks, great. You're going to get that commission check, and then what? Start over from scratch? Leads is a slow burn thing. You've all seen that by now. You have to go through a lot to get a lot, and that's what it is. So we set aside time every single day to make these calls, even while we have deals going on that will keep us consistently busy. All right, now again, we'll dive into the process here. We're going to start with the attempted contact. So if you were calling on P2, 3, or 4, somebody who has the attempted contact pipeline on them, you're going to go down this path right here. First, check the labels on them. Take a look at the labels that are on them. They're going to teach you a couple things about that lead, maybe put some questions in your mind, or give you some things to talk about when you're on the phone with that lead. Say they have this label on there, 2020-01. That means that they're ready to look, say, come January timeframe. So, hey, I had a note in my database that you were looking maybe early 2020 to start looking. Something to rehash something back to them makes you sound familiar with them. But look at the labels. If you don't know what the labels mean, call me, text me, let me tell you. Don't be confused about it. Let's all get on the same page. So if you have questions about any labels, let me know. Over the last 3 days, you might notice some differences in labels. I've cleaned up a lot and changed a lot about our labels that I think it'll be easier and more intuitive for us to use them. Next thing is check notes and communication. Much easier to do on the desktop than it is on the cell phone. But on the desktop, whenever you pull up details on a lead, there's a button right here under the Notes and Activities tab. You click that button once or twice, it clears off all these check marks, so it clears off a lot of the updates, and here's all the properties we sent them and all this other gobbledygook, and just check notes and communication. If you just check notes and communication, you'll see what the other agents have written down about that, what Jacob, if he's gotten in touch with them, has said about that person, and if that lead has responded back to us. So say they text back to one of our automated texts, say they emailed back to one of our automated emails. That way, if they gave us anything useful or somebody prior to you got some useful information on them, you want to have that in mind before you make that phone call. Lastly, how long ago were they on the site? If it was past, say, 2 weeks ago, they may have completely forgotten. How many of you remember how many .coms you went to yesterday, much less a week or 2 weeks ago or months ago? So just have that in mind. If you see a date past, say, 2 weeks of last time they logged in, just know whenever you call them, you might have to start with a, hey, it's been a little while, but you had been looking at some hand-to-hand properties on my site, Find Homes in Charleston. Just want to see if that's still of interest to you and wanted to be of service to you. Just a couple different reasons here. What labels are on them? What notes do we have about them? How long ago were they on the site? That's just some stuff to kind of have you ready for some chit-chat with them, to show that you're familiar with them, that you're not a cold caller, that they have been on our site and we're familiar with them, and we're just trying to make sure they understand. Hey, you came to us, we're familiar with you, and it puts them at ease with us. But now if you're doing P1 calls, if you're doing new lead calls, just skip straight into making the call. Don't look into whatever properties they looked at. Don't worry about their price point is. Again, we've talked about that before. The information on new leads, brand new leads before we've spoken to them, we don't really know anything about them. So don't dig through their files. Just call them and see what they have to say. And now here, what I say is the easiest call line you could ever have. Hi, this is Terry. You were looking at some homes on my site, Find Homes in Charleston. Wanted to see how I could be of service to you, how I could help you in your home search. It's short, it's to the point. There's a couple things in particular that it's missing on purpose. It doesn't say their name. I never say their name because guess what? Darlene might be using Bob, her husband's Facebook account, whenever she logs in. So it says Bob when I call, and it's actually Darlene's cell phone. Oh, sorry, Bob, your name's Darlene? Okay, sorry, it's just a little bit odd, confusing. Say it's a name that's hard to pronounce. You don't want to mess up somebody's name. That's very not good. It makes it a little bit shorter. It gives you one less chance to make a mistake. Maybe they typed in the fake name completely, and so then they'll be very off-put whenever you call them the wrong name. And also what's missing is it doesn't say .com. It says you were looking at some homes on my site, Find Homes in Charleston. Just because .com comes off a little more salesy than it should, but it is what it is. But it's the shortest amount of words you can say to open the floor to let them start talking. So again, I've got that on here as what I'm going to say is the best starter line you can have in making a call. Again, depending on how this other stuff came about, maybe all this and they weren't on there for 3 weeks. So, hey, this is Terry. You may not remember it was about a month ago, but you were looking on my site, Find Homes in Charleston, at some homes in Seabrook. Just want to see if that was any interest of you or how it could be of service to you. I'm with a real estate team. However, maybe modify it a little bit, but make it short, make it sweet, make it simple. The less you talk, the more they talk, the better for you. The more they trust you, really. So here now, once we get started making calls, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to answer or they're not. And of course, what happens most often is that they don't answer. That's part of the game. So for starters, if it is not a valid phone number, that says in fast busy signal or the automated message that says this number's been disconnected, anything that is clear and obvious this is not a working number. Something ringing endlessly, that doesn't mean it's invalid. That just means the phone's off the hook that day. Might be a landline, Verizon might be down, whatever. Unless you get a fast busy signal or some automated message that says this number, or a fax machine, unless you clearly know it's not a valid number. If that's the case, then we want to click that green check mark, change it to the invalid, and then we're going to move them over and assign them to Stella Chansey. That's a new agent on the team per se. I got that as a hint from another team. Obviously, it's a play on names, it's a play on words for still a chance. But that's a bucket we're going to shove leads into that we can't get in touch with over the phone. The pond, the only purpose of the pond is that we can get people on the hook on the phone. The website CINC emails people and texts people on a regular basis. So CINC is doing all that kind of typed message stuff. There's no reason for people that we cannot call to be in the pond. We're going to shove them over to Stella Chansey. That is going to be a bucket that I'm going to use the system to work. I'm going to make sure the system is still sending them their Happy Thanksgiving messages, is still sending them their property alerts, still sending them, and every now and then, hey, how's your home search going? If one of those comes back alive, I will bring them back to our team and assign them out from there. So again, if you can't get them on the phone because it is clearly not a valid number, change the green check mark to not to invalid, dump them into Stella Chansey. Next thing, getting a voicemail. That happens too. I mentioned earlier this week, we're not leaving voicemails anymore. That is a rule across the team that we're not going to leave a voicemail. Something that we know, though, is that it is a valid phone number if we got a voicemail. So if we got a voicemail, well, guess what? Did that voicemail say, hey, it's Bob, leave a message? Okay, well, guess what? The lead's name said Bob, so we just confirmed his name. Or say the lead's name said Mary Ann, and the voicemail said, it's Bob, leave a message. Okay, well, then we type a note in there that says, voicemail said name was Bob. So put that on there. So when the next person goes about working on contacting them, they at least know that phone number is going to ring Bob, not Mary Ann. Now, granted, we don't know if that email address is Mary Ann's or Bob's because we don't know if it was a fake name. We don't know if it was a spouse using the spouse's account. But anything you learn, any bit that you learn, even getting a voicemail, that tells you that we have a valid number, which is cool. Did they say, hey, you reached Bob's cell phone, leave a message? Well, even better, we have another label for a valid cell phone number. Okay, so anything you pick up on, add the labels for that. So basically, again, we're not leaving voicemails. We've had situations where, maybe 3 different agents left 3 different voicemails over the course of 2 days with the lead. And that can obviously be off-putting, and there's no easy way around that. But again, how many times have you gotten a voicemail from a stranger that's a sales call, and you actually called them back? Not likely. Our job is to keep reaching these people on the phone until we get them on the line and we start hearing from them. And basically they begin to trust us whenever we start hearing their voice and they hear our voice. So the point is not to leave voicemails. And also it just gets us moving on to make the next phone call and get us closer to talking to the next person. Now, when you're making calls, did you get an answer? If you got an answer, well, guess what? Then that's valid phone number. So do apply that label there to valid phone number anytime you get somebody answering the phone. Now we have a couple different things, let me scroll back up some, that we know happen once we start making phone calls. If they actually answer, they say, don't contact me. That happens, and that's fine. We're going to respect that. But again, I am being very explicit when I say, if they say, do not call me, or if they say, do not contact me. This is not no, I'm not looking for to have an agent right now. This is not, I'm not looking right now, so, I'm just browsing some, don't worry about calling me. No, if they say don't contact me, this is more for the customer who's not happy that says, take me off your call list. Don't call me again. That's what that is for. There is an X label, a black label for do not contact. Put on the black label, and guess what? Dump them into Stella Chansey. We won't call them. We're going to honor their request, but we're still going to email them, and I'm still going to text them to the system to see, hey, they're either going to unsubscribe from everything or they're going to become a client somewhere down the road. That's my goal, to bring them back to you guys. They say they have a realtor. Make them convince you that they actually have a realtor. Somebody says, oh, I'm already working with an agent. Oh, cool. Who are you working with? Quick and simple question. Find out, because if they don't give you a name, they're probably not working with a realtor. It was just a knee-jerk reaction to get you off the phone. So again, ask them, who is it you're working with? They will answer, or they will stumble around. If they stumble around, they don't have a realtor. If they don't give you a clear answer, don't put this label on there. If they do give you I'm working with so-and-so, oh, that's great. Yeah, I've heard that name beforehand, or I haven't worked with that person beforehand, or yeah, I know that person. I went to class with them, whatever it is. But get them to tell you a realtor's name if they say they have a realtor. And if they do, black label has a realtor. We have to be respectful for that for the industry. Black label them, put them in Stella Chansey. They can still use our website if they have a realtor. That is perfectly fine. But guess what? If they buy a house today, that doesn't mean they might not buy an investment property 6 months from now. I want to be the one that is still messaging them. By me, I mean us, CINC, the website, Find Homes in Charleston. I want us to be the ones that still continues reaching out to them. Guess what? Of the 14 different agents Amy and I worked with before we got into real estate, not a single one still contacts me. Okay, this is reasons that we're going to keep being the ones that keep contacting people and bring them back into our circle. Finally, they say they've already bought. Oh, how long ago did you buy? If it's like over a year ago, over 2 years ago, that doesn't even count. But if they did just buy, they've already closed, say sometime within the last 6 months or so. Okay, well then we're gonna leave them alone for a bit. Put the X on there, say already bought, and guess what? Drop them in Stella Chansey. There's no need to be calling on any of these people. And if you made that phone call and you learned any of this from them, they either said, do not contact me very explicitly, they convinced you they had a realtor and told you their realtor's name, or they bought at least within the past year, then we're going to dump them in Stella Chansey and leave them alone. Now here, we're going to go on to the next things that could happen whenever somebody picks up the phone. They're too busy at the moment. They say, call back later. I'm at work, call back later. I'm picking up the kids, call back later. I'm at the doctor, call back later. Claim that lead. That right there puts you 75% of the way onto having business from somebody. If you look at this whole process chart, that's the end of it right there. Once we start this, they said call back later. You have somebody on the phone that if you called them a couple hours later, you could say, hey, this is Michelle. I just tried to call you a couple hours ago. You said to call you back later. You're on the phone with them. So again, if you get somebody say call you back later, claim them, work with them, find out later. If you try to call them that afternoon, they don't answer, they're still yours. Next day, call them during the day again. See if you can get them on the phone. Call them in the afternoon again. But guess what? You have a chance there to say, hey, I just spoke to you yesterday. Was calling you about the homes you were looking at on Find Homes in Charleston. They will be familiar with you. So your job is to keep them familiar with you. And again, you are 75% of the way towards having a new potential client. So reassign them to you, claim them, put a reminder on your cell phone, put an alarm on your cell phone, do something so that that person will be reached back out to. We have had several occasions where one of our agents got somebody on the phone that said, call me back after 5:30. So a note was put on their lead account that said, call them back after 5:30. Well, guess what? Nobody called them back. So, that's a lost opportunity. So finally, we start getting into the meat and potatoes of it. So whenever we get somebody on the phone that says they're just browsing, the most common pushback you're going to get from most people you get on the phone, just like whenever you walk into a store, I'm just browsing, to whoever sales agents come up to you. When you go to a used car lot, I'm just browsing, I'm just looking. Same way, the first time a realtor gets on the phone, I'm just browsing. And simplest line that comes to my mind that I usually use, you can come up with your own, but is certainly that's what the site's there for. What had you looking today? Or what had you looking whenever? Leave it at that and let them start talking. Anytime you start with a what, that's an open-ended. So let them talk, see what they had to say. Oh, no, I was just bored. I get it. Is it something you were considering for the future? Because guess what? It took them 6 or 7 clicks and fill-ins of the blanks and stuff to get into our site. They were not just bored. They're looking intentionally. For the most part, that is always the case. So again, if they say they're just browsing, that's cool. That's what the site's there for. What had you looking? Take it from there. Let them take it from there. That's whenever you stop talking and you let them start talking. The more open-ended questions, the more they're rolling, the better it gets. So again, you get somebody either say call you back later or to say they're just browsing, you are now 85% into having yourself a new client to work with. So finally, when they do say they're just browsing, again, make them make you believe they're just browsing. Fire open-ended questions their way, and it will either become clear, no, I might retire that direction in a few years. We'll just kind of see what's in the area. Okay, that is just browsing. I get it. But past that, it's going to be one of the two that let them convince you they're just browsing. The longer you can keep them on the phone, or, they won't convince you they're just browsing, and before the end of it, they're your client. So say they do convince you that they are just browsing, you should at least be a number of sentences into that conversation. So by then, you've had an opportunity to learn a good amount about that person. So for one, here's a couple goals that you're going to have whenever you're on that phone. That one, there is a label for just browsing. So if they sell you on the fact they're just browsing, give them the just browsing label, just so we're familiar with that. Next time we call them, hey, I know Michelle spoke to you last month. You said you were just browsing, just touching base to see if things have become any more interesting to you, or if you're still just looking around at what's on the market. Again, it's an easier way to start the next conversation. So there is a label for that. But in that conversation, did you find out their timeline? Did they say, I'm probably retiring in about 3 years? Okay, well, that's information. Put a date timeline on them. I'll put it in the notes. Confirm their email address. Well, hey, before I let you off the phone, just to make sure that we're sending you the properties that kind of fit what you're looking for, the email address we have down for you is abc@gmail.com. Yep, you got it right. Cool. Now we've confirmed their email address. We know that's the right email address, because you know what also happens? They say, yeah, that's my email address, but I don't check that one often. Let me give you this one. Or let me also give you my wife's. If you get that, write it down on a sheet of paper. Contact me. I'll show you how we can put more than one contact into CINC for one person. If their name is funny or confusing, just to confirm, you pronounce your name, whatever it might be. Can't think of a good example. But confirm how they say their name. Or maybe throughout the phone call, remember, you've never said their name at the beginning because you didn't want to say the wrong name. But by the end of the phone call, sorry, from the start of this phone call, I'm sorry, I didn't confirm your name. And this far in, it's not off-putting to them. If you start the call that way, it's off-putting. To end the phone call with did not get your name from the beginning of this call, I'm sorry. Double check their name. Make sure we have the right name on their account. Then finally confirm their search. Say, well, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, I had that you were looking, excuse me, at hand-to-hand properties around 200 to 250. Just get them to confirm what it is they're looking at, because they might clarify, oh, well, I'm also looking in Latson and Somerville. Oh, well, let me add that to your search, because right now our site wasn't going to be sending that to you. So confirm their email address, make sure you have it right, confirm their name, confirm where their search is. Might even want to say, is this the best number to reach you at next time? But all of that goes into the notes. Every bit of that's information to say that we have the right name, we have the right phone number. We're going to update their search to match what it is they're looking for. That is what wins people over, that we pay attention to them. And that is what got me business through the system, is basically the more attention to them I pay, the more information I feed them, the more they're willing to come back to me and talk to me. So there's labels for all this stuff. Once you've confirmed their name, there's a label for confirmed name. Once we validated their email, there's a label for validated their email address. So look through all that stuff. Sorry. Now, finally, if they don't convince you they're just browsing, that makes them a real client. If they don't convince you that they are just browsing and kind of don't have any interest in the near future, then you have a client on your hands. Claim them. Again, if you're in a position where you could call somebody and later that day or the next week or the next month, and they're going to know who you are, if you're this far into the phone call with them, they're going to be familiar with you. Claim them. We have too many times we've spoken to somebody, gotten a little bit of information, but maybe they're not buying tomorrow, so we left them in the pool. And so then another agent contacts them. Then another agent leaves a voicemail. And then another agent texts them. And then we just look like a mess. But that's why if we're in touch with somebody, we become responsible for them, as in each of us individually. If they know my name, then Terry should be the one they hear from here on out, not anybody else. All the same information. If you were claiming somebody, verify the same stuff. Talk about their timeline of when they're looking. Put a label on there for what their timeline is. Confirm their email address. Confirm their name. Confirm their search. This is the only time you change somebody from attempted contact to contacted. Whenever you've claimed them and you are going to begin to take care of this person, that's when you take them from attempted contact to contacted. Now realize something here. You can claim people that stay under attempted contact. So say they said to call you back later. Okay, well, you claim them. All right, they're not contacted. They have no idea who you are yet, really. You know nothing about them. Only once you can start to confirm this stuff do they change to the contacted status. Only once you understand their needs, excuse me, do you change them to the contacted status. And the next thing is set a reminder. Are you going to call them back by this weekend? Are you going to call them back by the end of the week? Are you going to call them back by the end of the month? What was that conversation? What are their expectations? What do you expect to do for them? Set yourself a reminder. And that's how we all begin to consistently, build business out of CINC. Do this little simple process. It may sound like a lot, but I think you can understand once you do this a handful of times, it becomes pretty natural. But we keep rolling through this, and guess what? We will filter a lot of junk out of CINC, so we're not calling the same useless ones. We're going to filter those off to the side, and that's my job to see if any of those become useful again and bring them back to you. But again, you get somebody to say, call me back later, or say I was just browsing, you are 90% on the way to having yourself a lead. So, all right, that's the end of the video. Hope that all made sense. Sorry for all the clearing on my throat. This being the first freezing day, I'm definitely taking the effects of it. But hope to talk to you guys soon. Well, I'll talk to you guys in the morning on our morning phone call. Thanks.